This is Jamie Hadfield. Welcome to Legends, Health, Wellness, and Performance. And my guest is Brian.
Brian Weeler.
Welcome!
Thank
Brian,
you.
tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm an elderly person who has probably done everything to their body that you possibly could. I've broken most parts of my body at some time or other doing stupid stuff, and I'm still alive and doing well.
Yes, and there's a lot of things why you're doing well, and that's kind of what I want to talk about. One of those is you've used CBD for, prior to surgery. So can you just kind of give us a little testimonial for your use of CBD and what it did for you?
Well, I used CBD for a lot of my injuries to hold down the inflammation. I've had my ribs, the cartilage on my ribs ripped apart. Ooh. And I've used CBD for that, and that kept the pain under control and the inflammation under control, and it helped me with my healing. That in conjunction with a hyperbaric regimen, and so I cut my healing time in half for that by doing it.
Wow, I haven't heard that story. Is that a good story?
It's an interesting one. I was told by a doctor that after I'd gone to emergency, I went to see another doctor, and she said, "Oh, your rib's out of place. Would you like me to put that back?" And I said, "Please." So she put it back into place for me, and then said, I might suggest the hyperbaric chamber and doing it. And so I cut my recovery time from 8 weeks to 4 weeks.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
And I kept using my CBD oil for that. And then some of my other adventures, that was when somebody hit me with a snowboard. And another one was another snowboard. A 12-year-old kid came around and clipped my right knee pretty badly and tore the medial meniscus. And I went to see my orthopedic surgeon, and he poked at my knee and he says, "Is it right here?" And as he poked into that, I levitated off the table and I said, "Yes." And he says, "Well, I don't think we really need to do an MRI or an X-ray of this because we know it's right here." And he did it again, and I levitated, and I told him, I said, "If you touch it one more time, I'm going to deck you." And he said, "Well, we can operate on this thing." I said, "Not right away. I am scheduled for a month in Europe cycling in Portugal and Spain." And he says, "Well, it might hurt a little bit." I said, "I've got a lot of CBD oil and I'm going to use it, and I've already been using it to keep the pain and the inflammation down." And he said, "Well, that's good." He says, "Let's schedule it as soon as you return." I said, "Sounds good to me." And I went and did my month in Europe and rode with some very high energy cyclists called pros.
And how many miles were you doing?
We were doing about 40 or 50 miles a day. Riding at high speeds.
For a month?
For a month. So I did all of that, came back, went in, saw my called him and said, "Okay, we already have a date scheduled." I said, "Do you want to do a pre-op check on it?" And he says, "Yeah, come in for a second." And he said, "Well, how did everything go?" I said, "It's still good." And he looks at it and he says, "I don't see any swelling in the knee or anything like that. It looks pretty good." And I said, "I've been taking my CBD oil religiously 3 times a day." So he said, "Okay, here's the schedule." And he said, "Okay, I have a slight thyroid problem." So he said, "Okay, you've got 24 hours before. We'll just stop all the medications before you come into the surgery." And I said, "Sounds good to me." And so I stopped everything, went in, had the surgery, and he came into the recovery room afterwards, and he says, okay, now you can go back. You remember that stuff you were telling me about? And I said, the CBD? He says, yeah, when you get home tonight, go back to taking it. And he kind of gave...
He wasn't that educated in the CBD
No,
either.
he was not educated in the CBD regime. So I looked at him, gave him, I said, okay. And he says, and the reason I'm telling you this is I went in, scoped all of this stuff, cleaned it out. He said, I've spent 20 minutes total in and out. He says, the fastest I've ever done a medial meniscus repair, clean out. And he said, there was zero inflammation in the knee joint. He said, I could see everything I needed to get out so easily. And I asked him, I said, 20 minutes? I said, what's your normal time? He says, well, over half hour and that. I said, does that mean you could have done a whole lot more if people have been taking the CBD? And he says, yeah. I said, does that mean you could have made more money? And he said, well, yeah. So he said, it worked for you on that one. And then about a little over a year ago, I broke my right hip.
Oh.
It was very seriously broken. And the orthopedic surgeon that did all the work is a friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. And after the surgery, the emergency surgery to put it back together with the bolts and the plates and all the rest of the hardware, he came in and talked to me and he said, you know, Brian, that whole joint into there was completely clean, no inflammation. For somebody your age, normally we see a lot of inflammation. He said, there was zero in there. He said, I could match the parts, and all the parts where it was broken went right back together just like that, the way they were supposed to. They meshed in and nested in completely. He says, perfect fit. I was able to do that and watch it all. He said, but no inflammation. And I said, I'm taking the CBD. He said, keep on doing it. He says, it looks good.
So I know that he asked you if he could start taking CBD, and he had some type of shoulder injury or something?
Oh, I've had shoulder injuries, and I've taken CBD for that, and I play pickleball right now. I don't have any in here, in my shoulder, no rotator tendons into there. They're all ripped apart from various other injuries, stupid things I've done. And
That's because you're an avid exerciser. Let's actually say that as well. How many hours a day do you exercise?
Let's put it, there are some hours. I'm playing pickleball.
Hours.
I'm playing pickleball and a few things like this. And I've been told, you know, I probably never would be able to do it. But what I do, when I get up in the morning and I know I've got to go out and play pickleball, I will put the CBD salve onto my shoulder, takes care of any of the inflammations, and I'm able to play at a very high level using that. And I don't have any of the pains. So I'm using it both orally and topically as the salve on my shoulders, and I found that works really, really well. It also controls some of my tennis elbow, and you always get it in through here, so I use a little bit of the CBD salve onto that, and it controls it completely, so I don't have the pains and I can play at a high level. So I can still do all the stupid stuff that you're not supposed to be able to do at my age.
But I mean, we've kind of talked about your diet. Diet comes into play, rest comes into play. I mean, you do a lot of things to keep your energy up.
Yeah, I eat primarily a plant-based diet, and that gives me all the proteins and vitamins and fiber that I need to keep up with everybody. And I found that I really need to do that too to stay up with the high-level athletes. I was a sprinter when I was young, and I found out one time why I couldn't beat the top sprinters, and that's because they were vegan.
Oh.
And I wasn't at the time. So their breathing was better than mine. They could get better oxygen intake than I could. So if I had done that, I would have been a much better sprinter. I probably wouldn't have made the world championships or anything. But in later years, it has allowed me to keep up with the high-level bicycle racers. And it has allowed me to actually win some Gran Fondos that I should not have won if I was not following a good plant-based diet. Because I won the first Gran Fondo at 70 years old, and I beat the second place man by an hour and 5 minutes at 100 miles.
Wow, wow.
So
That is a great testimony to healthy eating and using CBD to help with the inflammation, so you're not.
Yeah, it keeps all the inflammation down, and that's how you win.
There you go. I think we end right there. That's how you win. Eat well and take CBD.
Right, completely, and use it topically to prevent the pains.
Yeah.
Because as we get older, we tend to think we get a lot of pains and muscle strains and so forth and so on. The CBD topically gets rid of the pains. I had a friend of mine who was also a doctor that had some surgery, and I gave him some of my topical CBD to put on his shoulder, and he was a little dubious about the impact of it.
Mm-hmm.
He put it on, I didn't talk to him for a number of days, and I said, well, how is the CBD salve working for you? And his comment to me is, you're not getting your jar of CBD salve back. So that kind of gave me an idea of how well it was working.
Yes. And I'm really happy to hear that as, the producer of the CBD salve. So that is an awesome testimonial. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And thanks for that testimonial.
All right.